Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're going to create an animation in which Scratch the Cat will think of a random number and the player has to actually guess what that number is. So let's get started. First of all, we're going to create an event which is when the green flag is clicked. We then want Scratch to actually think of a number. To do that, we need to go to variables and create a new variable, and we'll call this number. Now this is going to be the number that Scratch thinks of. So we're going to set the number to 0 at the beginning of the game. So let's get Scratch to choose a random number between 1 and 100. So let's go to operators and drag into the animation a pick random block and put it inside there. Let's set the maximum to be 100 and leave the minimum as 1. Every time I click on the green flag, you see the number variable is randomly chosen between 1 and 100. Okay, now still it's not a game, so let's get Scratch to actually ask the player what number they are thinking of. To do that, let's go to sensing and drag in the ask and wait block and put it underneath our variable number. And in here we're going to set the question, guess a number. Okay, now we want Scratch to actually check what number we type in and say if it actually matches the number he's thought of. To do that, we need to actually go to control and we are going to add in an if then else statement. And we have an hexagonal space here, and in there we're going to put a mathematical calculation, or check shall I say, to see if the answer the player has typed in is actually the same number as the variable. Let's go to operators and drag in equals. And we want to go to sensing next and put the answer value from our question here, and equals is going to be the variable number. So go to variables and drag in number. Okay, so basically what happens is that Scratch will ask, guess a number, and if the answer the player gives is the same number as the one in the variable, then this will happen. So here we want to put a say block, and in there we want to say correct. Otherwise, we put wrong down here. So let's run it quickly. The number is 41. Obviously, we'll hide that later on. I guess a number. I'm going to type in 41. And we got it correct. Let's try again. Guess a number. It's actually 17, so let's try 99. And we got it wrong. It'd be quite nice though if we let the player have more than one guess. Now that can be achieved by going to variables and creating a second variable, and we'll call this guess counter. And okay, and we want to set guess counter to be 10. That means that we'll give the player 10 goes to guess the number. Now if the player gets the answer and gets the guess right, then we want to actually stop the game. Otherwise we want to decrease the guess counter by 1. So we're going to change guess counter and put it underneath here. So change guess counter by -1. But still this is not going to be very useful unless we're actually having a check on what the guess counter is. So let's go back to control and let's use repeat until and put it around everything below the variable settings. And in here we're going to go to operators and have equals and repeat until, goes back to variables and put guess counter here, and then repeat until guess counter is 0. Okay, so basically what we've just done is we're going to set number to a random number between 1 and 100. We're going to set the guess counter to 10, and then we're going to repeat the following code until guess counter is 0. Then Scratch will ask guess a number, and if the answer the player types in is the same number as in the variable number, then we'll say correct and the whole game will stop. Otherwise we'll say wrong, we'll decrease the guess counter by 1, and then we'll loop back and restart and ask a question again. So let's see it running. Guess a number. The number is actually 91, so let's type in 67. Wrong. Guess a number, and now the guess count has gone down. Let's make it so Scratch will actually give us some hints about whether above or below the actual real number. Okay, to do that, we're going to have to extend the if then else statements. And we're going to actually put a second one in. So I'm going to go to Control and grab another if then else statement, and I'm going to pull all of this about the wrong answer out. And I'm going to put this in its place. Now here we're going to use this to actually check and see if the number that the player has guessed is above or below the actual real answer. So we need to go to Operators and put the greater than calculation in there. And then we're going to say the answer, I'm going to go in the first one, is greater than the variable number. Then we can actually say you've got it a bit too high. So we're going to say it is less than that. Okay, let's say it just for 1 second. Then we can decrease the counter by 1. And here we're going to do exactly the same, but we'll have it so we'll say it is more than that. And let's also, once again, duplicate this and decrease the counter. Okay, so now this is actually saying if the answer is greater than the actual number, then we'll say it's less than that, and we'll decrease the counter by 1, and then we'll restart. Otherwise, we'll say it's more than that. So let's run it one more time. So the number is actually 21. Guess a number. I'm going to type in 28. It's less than that. It is. Let's have another one in. 5. It's more than that. 21. Correct. Brilliant. Okay. Now we could once again leave our animation just there, but let's make it a bit better. Let's actually create a list on the screen for the player to use to help them work out which numbers they've actually already guessed. So we're going to create 2 lists, and in these 2 lists we will put all of the player's guesses so the player doesn't actually say the same number more than once. Now we're going to go to variables, and rather than creating a variable, we're going to create a list, and we'll make 2 lists. The first list is called more than, and the second list is going to be called, you probably guessed it, less than. Okay, now we've got 2 lists. Now we want to put them somewhere so we can still see the main character, and it's quite important that we put them with more than on the left hand side and less than on the right hand side, so the player realizes these are the smallest guesses that are below, and these are the guesses that are above the number. Okay, now we're also going to set the I'm going to want to delete everything actually in the lists at the beginning of the game, because we don't want previous guesses from previous games to still be in the list. So we're going to drag the delete all of and put it underneath the code, and we're going to also do that one more time, and this time we're going to change it to more than. So every time we run the game, both lists will be emptied. Now we're going to look at this area of our code next, and this is where we're going to add the guesses to the lists. Now if we say that you made a guess which is less than the number, we need to actually drag in, add, and put it in here. So then we're going to get that answer block again and put it in here. So add the answer the player types in to less than. And we're going to do exactly the same for the second part, which is more than. So let's duplicate the answer one more time and change this to more than. Okay, now what we've just done is we've created some code which will add our guesses to the lists, and so we can actually see them appearing, and it makes it a little bit easier. So if I run it one more time and the number is 34, I'm going to guess a number, and I will guess 89, which I know is more than the number that is actually going to choose. So now we say that 89 is it's going to be less than 89. So we say less than 89. So let's try another one. Let's go 21. And now we know that it's more than that. And that's going to put it on here. So it's more than 21, but it's less than 89. And actually, we could probably move these up a little bit so we can actually see the lists like that. And we can also see the question. And we can move him up a little bit as well. Guess a number, and this time I'm going to go with 33. It's more than 33. Okay, and let's go with 34. Correct. Okay, so that is a bit more complicated, that animation. And so, with this code, you can now create a guessing game. And if you want to reduce the number of guesses that the player has, just change this number, the number 10, to a lower number. Obviously, you want to hide the number that Scratch is thinking of. To do that, we go to the variables blocks, and then we simply untick the box next to number, and it would disappear. Okay, and we can put the guess counter maybe right at the top like that. Okay, and that is our game. There are more things we can do to make it even more challenging and even more advanced. So maybe we want Scratch to actually say the answer at the very end. I'm going to move that to the left hand side actually, because Scratch's speech bubble is going to be appearing there. So at the very end, we want Scratch to actually say what his number was. So we go to looks and we drag across say, and we put it right at the end. And in fact, I'm going to get rid of the stop all block. Actually, I'm going to get rid of stop all block, and I'm then going to change the guess counter and set it to be 0. So what this will do is it will then catch the set the 0, and then all our goes will finish. So now down here, I'm actually going to write. I'll put in a join block because I want to add some text that I will type in to the actual answer. And here I will simply type in my number was space, and we go to variables and drag number across. We do this because it may be that the player doesn't guess the number in 10 goes, but you still want to know what the number was. And Scratch will actually say it at the very end of the game. So let's run it one more time and see how it works. Okay, I'm going to go with 90. It's less than 90. 30. It's less than 30. 10. It's less than 10. Okay. 2. It's more than 2. Right. That's a relief. 5. It's more than 5. I've only got 5 more guesses. 6. Yes, correct. My number was 6. Brilliant. And that's the end of the game. Okay, now I hope you've enjoyed looking at this and learning how to make this sort of game. If you want to learn about more games and you want to create more Scratch animations, please come back and watch more of my videos, and I look forward to seeing you and speaking to you again soon. Goodbye.